I've always been like hugely competitive, whether it's like anything. I don't like being bad at something. I'd watched World's Strongest Man as a kid all the way through. You know, it's fantastic going out there and competing against like Brian Shaw, Johannes Ahu. It was absolutely incredible, you know, and to get 4th place and then Brycey tell me, yeah, you'll be getting an invite to World's Strongest Man in April, was unbelievable. If you just dream about reaching the stars but don't focus on building the rocket ship, then you're never going to get there. No regrets. I've got no problem if you know, I never win World's Strongest Man because I'm beaten by better people. On the day they have better events. I've got no problem with that. What I couldn't live with if I knew that I'd never reach my full potential. I was never as strong as I could be because I didn't apply myself fully by not going full time, you know. Yeah, if it doesn't happen, if I don't win that World's Strongest Man within the next 10 years, but I gave everything, I'd say, hey, look, I gave everything, I just wasn't there.
Okay, for those who don't know, just introduce yourself and what you do.
Yeah, I'm Adam Bishop. I am a professional strongman.
Okay, and whereabouts did you grow up?
So I actually grew up in Essex, or kind of the Hertfordshire-Essex border. I was born in Harlow, and then kind of like moved around with school and stuff. But yeah, I'm an Essex boy at heart.
And childhood?
Childhood was good, yeah. Parents were great. Both my parents were teachers. So I was obviously focused on school and stuff, played a lot of sports, mainly rugby and cricket. But you know, fortunately went to a school in Stortford that was heavily into sports. So he kind of invested a lot in playing fields and stuff. So it was great. You know, most of the time I was just playing different sports, moving around and playing outside and stuff. Not really a computer game, even though I was of the generation of the PlayStation. Never really kind of got into that. So probably set me up quite well for the future.
And what was it like? So as a kid, was you naturally physically gifted, or was it a normal person?
Yeah, I was definitely physically gifted. You know, I was always skinny. I've always struggled to put on weight, believe it or not. I was kind of like tall, but definitely had good genetics from my parents. My dad played rugby and basketball. My mother was a sprinter and played hockey. So definitely got their kind of fast twitch muscle fibres, and things came easy to me. I think when I started playing rugby at the age of 10, I started playing in the under-13s. So I was playing a couple of age grades up because the club I wanted to play at didn't have a mini section. So I just kind of went straight to under-13s. So I think that massively helped me improve my rugby quickly, because otherwise I'm just going to get smashed. So yeah, it was definitely sports came much easier to me than kind of academics, I guess. But yeah, not that so obviously I struggled academically, but I just probably enjoyed sports a lot more.
So were your parents being athletes? Did you have like a competitive mindset at the time?
I've always been competitive, everything. You know, me and my dad used to wrestle like all the time when I was a kid. And I used to sprint against my dad the whole time, like try and beat him in like foot races and stuff. And yeah, I've always been like hugely competitive, whether it's like anything. I don't like being bad at something, you know, and if I am bad at something, I'll try and get better as fast as possible, just to make sure that I'm not kind of embarrassed again, if you like, you know. So yeah, always competitive, whether it's, you know, playing rugby or you know, just playing football in the yard with my friends. You know, it's always want to be the best player out there.
So rugby days, early days, what's that like for someone who's not involved in a sport?
Yeah, so I mean, it's full contact as soon as we started at under-13s. So, you know, rugby's a fantastic sport in the fact that it's got a position for everyone, you know, especially for kids. Whereas football, you know, you have to be fast, agile, etc. Rugby's got positions for your little fat kids. It's got, you know, positions for your overly skinny kids can play on the wing. You've got, you know, short kids can play at scrum half. So I think rugby is a fantastic sport for inclusion for everyone, because every, you know, shape of kid has a position on that field, and everyone can play on a level playing field. So that was what, you know, I really enjoyed. And when I started playing out, I used to play in the back row. So I used to play number 8, which is obviously right at the back of the scrum. So I used to link up with the backs quite a lot and play quite a fast kind of running game, which was what I really enjoyed. Getting my hands on the ball, making tackles, you know, all of this kind of fun stuff in rugby, I believe, is fun anyway. And yeah, it was a great period of my life. Obviously, played rugby all the way through, you know, early years, through my teens, up until kind of university level, before obviously I moved away from it.
When I was younger, I played basketball like quite competitively, and like I did learn a lot, like discipline. I think a lot of it carried over into like business and other things that I did. Is that the same sort of like level you was playing at, same sort of thing?
Yeah.
Did you discipline daily routine, morning routines, all that kind of stuff?
Definitely. Well, my parents tell me that when I was a young kid, I was actually quite shy. They said that I was quite shy, and to build my confidence stuff, they actually kind of threw me into different things. So I actually started doing kind of like mixed martial arts and stuff as a kid, going down to kind of karate lessons, etc., and judo. From the age of kind of 5 onwards, I was kind of doing that. And it was the same with rugby. It teaches you discipline. Not just kind of discipline in the point of doing what you're told, but discipline with your training. Being on time to sessions, etc. Sticking to the rules. I think it's fantastic kind of fantastic. Sports in general are fantastic for teaching good life practices and kind of keep kids away from kind of negative influences. In my opinion, it's really underrated, especially as now kids spend the whole time inside on a computer game, and you might be competitive with someone on the other side of the world, but there's no physical interaction with other people, and I think that and working with your peers to like overcome or to attain a goal, like you do with rugby, of winning a game, is hugely beneficial.
So then, from you was playing competitively in rugby. How did you get to strongman and then into strength and conditioning? Like the whole, was that happen at the same time?
Yeah, so kind of. I mean, I played high level of rugby. I was obviously played county, played professional for a year with Saracens Rugby Club. Came all the way through their academy, basically from 14s upwards, to get a academy contract, which is nothing big, when I was leaving school. So I actually deferred my place at university. I'd got a place at Loughborough to study sports science, and I deferred that for a year to go full time with the rugby, and that was fantastic. Obviously, it's my first taste of full time professional sport, which is great. But it was during that year that I kind of realised that, while I was a very gifted athlete, I didn't necessarily have a set position on the rugby field. And with my work in rugby later down the line, I see this a lot with some younger players who are incredibly gifted in and around the gym, fit, fast, strong, but don't necessarily have that out-and-out position on a rugby field that the top professionals have. I'd be playing in the back row. I'd sometimes play on the wing as well because I was very quick. But I didn't have that set position that I was like the best in one position. So, at that time, then I decided, okay, I'll go to university, and my goal then was to move into strength and conditioning. I liked the feeling of kind of improving in the gym or out on the running track, and I thought I'd be able to help a lot more people that way. So, took my place up at Loughborough, which is arguably the best university for sport, especially kind of education as well, in terms of sporting education, sports science, with the goal of becoming a strength and conditioning coach. Back then you didn't have the strength and conditioning coach degrees you have now, so it's a case of doing a sports science degree and then finding a placement after that. And while I was at Loughborough, I got the opportunity to go and do some strongman training. So I'd finished playing rugby, and it was my last year of uni, and I'd kind of stopped there because obviously I was getting ready to take the full-time job on. I was actually earning, so I was working on the door to make sure I had money for when I had to do a year's unpaid work that I would do in strength and conditioning. So probably my degree suffered a wee bit as I was working on the doors from like 7 at night till 5 in the morning. I'm probably missing a few too many lectures, but I got the opportunity to go and do some strongman training. I'd watched World's Strongest Man as a kid all the way through. I think my first one I watched was Magnus Samuelsson winning it in 1998. That was on BBC. Christmas time. Like a lot of people in the UK, I think it's kind of synonymous with kind of Christmas time and everyone's sitting around and watching something crazy. And I wanted a chance to have a go at it, and fortunately, some of my mates were going down there. I went with them and kind of took to it like a duck to water. I was moving really well with the events. I enjoyed it, and it was literally, I can't tell you, it was a dusty yard in the middle of Leicestershire. There was homemade equipment. It was just out of a container. A good friend of mine, Jason Talbot, who is a former British champion in both powerlifting and then strongman as well. He was running the sessions there, and it was fantastic, and I was kind of bitten by the bug straight away. Entered my first competition that year, so it was 2011. I won Midland's Strongest Man, and then won the UK Strongest Man as well, under 105 kilo class. And then just moved up to the Opens and kind of started progressing from there. And I was kind of bitten by the iron bug and stuck in the iron game.
When you was younger and you was watching it, was there any connection then, like when you used to watch it?
No, when I watched it originally, I thought it was really cool, and I wanted to have a go at it. You know, I could see myself. I became fascinated with strength because it came naturally to me. But I didn't go out there thinking, right, I'm going to compete at World's Strongest Man. It was more of a case of, you know, I'd love to do this someday, and it wouldn't be cool to be the strongest man on the planet. And that's kind of where my strength journey started. It wasn't until after I won Midland's Strongest Man under 105, still in my first year competing, I set the goal of competing at World's Strongest Man within 5 years, which I managed to do, competing in my first Worlds in 2015. But yeah, it wasn't until I actually started doing the training. You know, back then as a kid, I was just fascinated by maximal strength, like a lot of people are. We're humans are naturally obsessed with the ultimates. You know, whether it's the fastest man on the planet, you know, the strongest, you know, the quickest person to run a marathon, especially when it comes to sporting prowess. So for me, you know, I was most fascinated with kind of maximal strength.
So when you're a younger in the strongman, you set a goal of world's strongest man. How far away was you at that point to achieving that? Is that like, are you doing that as like a visualization technique or like?
Yeah, I guess I set that kind of goal. It was back in 2011 I set it. So I gave myself 4 years to get to World's Strongest Man. And, you know, it was always in the back of my mind. And I just focused on obviously doing what I needed to get there, but not rushing. So, you know, I took my time with it. I put on, you know, weight slowly, just because I wanted to get to World's Strongest Man by 2015. I didn't want to get there the next year, you know, so I did everything quite slowly and competing in various competitions in the open class, still at around 110 kilo body weight a lot of the time, competing with the opens. You know, 2012 I won UK Strongest Junior, so that's an under 23 category. And then 2014 I had my big break. You know, UK Strongest Man that year I got second behind Eddie Hall. And a Luke Stoltman in third as well. So yeah, you can see we've been competing together a long time. And after that second place, I got a call from Colin Bryce inviting me to go and do a Giants Live at the back end of 2014. And you know what? It's funny. We still chat about, myself and Colin still chat about that initial kind of phone call because I was tired. I was really tired. I had a full year competing. I'd finished the UKs and it was kind of start of September time, and I just wanted to look forward to an off season. And he was inviting me to a Giants Live at the start of November in Sweden. Initially, I was kind of like, I started on the call like, oh, I don't know, you know, I'm gonna have to start like training again. And then I kind of like heard myself saying it. I was like, of course, I'm going to take this opportunity to go and compete internationally at Giants Live. And yeah, I mean, thank God I did, because you know these chances don't come around often. You know, you get the call to compete at one of these shows, and you need to be ready to go. And yeah, competed out at Sweden and had a stellar first international competition. I think I got 4th place in a stacked international field as this skinny kid with a massive head. And you know, it was fantastic going out there and competing against like Brian Shaw, Johannes Ahu. It was absolutely incredible, you know, and to get 4th place, and then Bryce, he tell me, yeah, you'll be getting an invite to World's Strongest Man in April, was unbelievable.
I want to go on to World's Strongest Man, like this, like allure of it. But firstly, to have that self-belief early on, like the way you're speaking is a bit like your parents are athletes. Sounds like you've had that self-belief from quite a young age anyway. How important is it for somebody to like become successful in anything, even outside of strength sport, to have that self-belief?
100%. If you can't visualize yourself achieving your goals, then you'll never achieve your goals. You know, everything starts in the mind. Like if you have to believe truly in your heart that you will achieve what you want to do, whether that's, you know, achieving the grades you want to in school, or getting to a certain level in business, or closing a deal that brings in X amount of money. If you don't believe it's going to happen, if you can't visualize that process and what it actually feels like as well, which is something that I did quite a lot, is when I'm using imagery in my mind, I'll actually see myself there competing or achieving my goal, but also focus on that feeling of how will it feel to achieve my goal. And that creates a pretty strong bond. You know, that link between the two is getting an emotional link to achieving your goal is hugely important. I think that's what drives people, you know, and if people want to achieve their goals, whatever it may be, if it's a sporting goal or whatever, then the first step is believing it themselves and imagining themselves them achieving their goal.
So yeah, I mean, we talk about it a lot, like visualization. I don't know if you would use that terminology, but like we like really believe in almost like the smells, the like of when you're stood on that stage. So World's Strongest Man, obviously there's this big this thing about winning World's Strongest Man. So if you could talk about that, would be amazing. But have you been there yet, like in your head, like holding that trophy?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a strange one, you know. Like my initial goal. Another thing with goals, obviously, you might have the ultimate goal, but you have to break them down into shorter, more achievable goals, short term. Otherwise, you'll always be fantasizing about the end goal and not actually focus on the climbing the ladder to get to that goal. You know, if you just dream about reaching the stars but don't focus on building the rocket ship, then you're never going to get there. So you know, my first obviously goal was to compete at World's Strongest Man in 2015, and you know, I got there and it was like crazy. You know, I was in this amazing group. You know, Big Z was walking around looking massive. Brian was in my group. Obviously, Eddie had been competing as well. And yeah, I was like a fish out of water in my first year. And that's when, as soon as that finished, I was like, right, that goal's done. Now I've got to win this competition. That's the next goal. And make the next ladder. So it's like I've just kind of had to reset all my goals that I've been working towards for 5 years, because now the real work begins and I've got to start again in kind of building towards this new goal. And that's World's Strongest Man, you know. And yeah, as soon as that happened, I had that goal of being World's Strongest Man, but I couldn't really place myself there for a long time. The first time, you know, I suffered from confidence issues, in all honesty, some anxiety at certain competitions. You know, sometimes, especially at Europe's Strongest Man one time, I just didn't want to be there. I just got so nervous. And it wasn't until the World Tour final in 2018 that I actually started to believe in myself, you know. And that competition was a big breakthrough competition for me. You know, I got my first podium at an international show, and you had Kieliszkowski was first, Martins Lisses was second, then it was me. And I beat a huge stage, including kind of Big Z, Iron Bibi, all these guys, Janashia, and I won that show. I came third in that show. And the most annoying thing in my brain happened, but obviously I was there. The points are really close, and we're going in, and I'm in third place, going into the stones. And in my head, I'm thinking, right, don't fuck this up, okay? Make sure you get the podium. In reality, what I should have been thinking was, right, go out there and attack and get this first place and try and go for the win. And afterwards, you know, after I got obviously I was really happy with getting that first podium. And I was like, man, I'm on the edge here of winning shows, you know. I need to now, that was the first time I could actually see myself and picture myself on the top of the podiums, both at kind of World's Strongest Man, Britain's Strongest Man, you know, Europe's, etc. That's when I could start actually seeing myself achieving it. Is after that kind of moment there of going, okay, you've done all this now you can be on like full attack mode.
So have you, in your head, have you held the trophy yet? Like, have you been to that place yet?
Yes, yeah. So in my head, I've seen myself on top of that podium, and you know, I've seen holding that massive trophy, etc., and everyone kind of looking at you and stuff. And I've seen that in my mind, and it's just kind of now climbing the ladder to actually achieve that.
So what does it, for a normal person, like, just explain what the World's Strongest Man title would be to somebody?
Oh, it's everything. I mean, World's Strongest Man, the title is like, you know, the gold medal at the Olympics for the 100 metres. You know, it's like lifting the World Cup in football. It's like lifting the Super Bowl in American football. You know, it's the pinnacle of our sport. And to be able to call yourself the undisputed World's Strongest Man is everything for strength athletes, you know. Even guys who compete in weightlifting and powerlifting, you know, they still kind of look at that World's Strongest Man title and wish it was them, you know, and that's a big thing. And it's not just the kind of like kudos that comes with it. It's more the sense of achievement that how many years you've put in, because you know, strength doesn't come easy. You know, it takes a long time to develop. It costs a lot of money to develop if you account for all the food we have to eat and the hard times you have to endure. And you know, it's more of I see it as more of a getting that World's Strongest Man title is like a realisation of all your hard work and effort over the years.
Wow. So for a normal person who's looking at World's Strongest Man, what if they were looking to get into competing it? What would they have to go through to get to the highest of levels?
I think for me, I always say this before, is about taking their time. Too many people come in and try and win World's Strongest Man within a couple of years, and look, that just doesn't happen. You know, it takes years of dedication and hard work. But the first stage is to find somewhere. And if you're in the UK or the US, you're very lucky because there's a lot of gyms out there that have access to strongman equipment. You know, your log presses, your Atlas stones, axles. Just go there, find those gyms. And I think the most important thing is to get your technique nailed down early doors on these movements. You know, when I started out, I'd beat a lot of guys not because I was stronger than them, but because I was more efficient at the lifts. And that seems to be lost. I think everyone just wants to grip it and rip it, as opposed to taking their time and working out the finer details of each lift and becoming so efficient that it becomes easy.
And for someone who is outside of the sport, in terms of becoming successful, which I would say you are in your sport, you're quite successful. How would someone go about it, formulating a day, formulating a plan to sort of get to that place?
I guess for me, my whole day is based around making myself better. So I like to start the day and have a plan of things I'm going to do that are going to make me a better strongman. At the end of the day, I'll reflect back on that and go, okay, yeah, I've done everything today. You know, whether it's eating all my meals, having a good solid training session, a second solid training session, or doing my recovery work. I've done my 3 different recovery modalities. All these things are going to make me better and one step closer to my goal. It's the same for anyone if for their goals, whether it's, you know, a business goal or a performance goal in any other way, is make sure that everything you're doing during your day is focused towards making you a better person and get a step closer to the goal. You don't need dead time on Netflix watching crappy documentaries when you could be making sure you're getting better. You know, make sure you're the hardest worker in the room every time. Make sure you're getting ahead of your competitors. That's what I think about. You know, I think, right, there's no way these other guys who I'm competing against are doing what I'm doing now, which puts me in a really powerful position. You know, I'm getting ahead of everyone who I'm competing against.
Do you compete with people in your head then? Like, you know, like, can you visualize them on the other side of the world, whoever it might be?
Yeah, I'll write names down on my whiteboard. I'll focus, you know, I'll also create like hate towards people that I've never hated before. You know, it's very powerful. Like, I'll happily say that when we were working towards Britain's Strongest Man this year, I basically just wrote down on my wall the Stoltmans. You know, they were the closest competitors. I just built this thing about, you know, being against both of them. They were teaming up on me, you know, and it was completely false because I'm great friends with both of them. But in my head, I needed that to push me in those kind of deep sets where I'm doing multiple reps or late night sessions where I'm tired, I want to go to bed. I could just look at that and see that's what I'm working towards. And that kind of, you know, false anger that I had towards an image or those people was what drove me.
So I mean, late nights, early mornings, forced meals. In terms of like sacrifices, what has it taken?
Oh, it's a huge amount of sacrifice. I'm an incredibly selfish person. I know that. I don't speak to my university friends or my other friends outside of strongman as much as I should. I'm very lucky that my partner Amy is nearly as selfish as I am. She's focused on her business. She's focused on her triathlon. She does Ironmans, so she knows what it's like. And it's important that I have someone who understands what it takes to compete at the high level, because otherwise, I mean, it wouldn't be in a relationship. But yeah, I'm not socialising with my friends. I'm not drinking at the weekend. I'm not skipping meals. If I have to go out somewhere, I have to plan ahead to make sure I'm taking food with me and know when I'm going to be able to train and do all these things. I'm terrible with like keeping in touch with people, just because I'm always training and I'm always just focused on those events. So yeah, I'm a nightmare to plan holidays with as well, because Amy will try and book us on a holiday and I'm like, nah, I'm sorry, you know, we don't know when Worlds is yet, so we can't book anything until we know. So yeah, it's a lot of sacrifice, and I'm very fortunate I've got someone in the house with me who understands that. For
people who feel like they can't sacrifice, I mean, I see this a lot online. Like, I've already given up this, I've already given up that. I get up early. Like, when it's that extra step, like, what do people need to do? What's your advice to those people?
I think they need to reevaluate their goals and really work out whether what they're working towards is actually what they want. Because I can't imagine, and it's fine, I'm not saying, you know, for example, I don't have children and we're not having children. It's another sacrifice, I guess, but I understand it when people say they've got a family and they need to support that family, and that's fantastic, you know, but don't don't say that you're fully committed to one thing if you've obviously got other things on that you are committed to as well. You know, and you have to take a step back and go, okay, am I really going to achieve my goals if I'm actually not applying myself fully to it? So that I had to do, you know, I was working full time in a great job that I loved, but suddenly I'd hate to be looking back on my career in 10 years' time and realising that I didn't fully commit to strongman because I was, you know, enjoyed working at another profession. You know, I'd hate for that to be the reason, and you know, that I was too scared to take the plunge and go full time with it. And it's something I had to do, even though it was a great job, one of the ones I really enjoyed. I had to kind of pull the plug on it to really kind of feed my passion and obsession with World's Strongest Man.
I've asked the same question to Luke because he was in a similar position to you, but went full time. What would you do if you sacrificed everything and you came so close to winning Worlds, but you didn't? Like, what would, at the end of your career, not touching that Worlds trophy?
There's no regrets. I've got no problem if you know, I never win World's Strongest Man because I'm beaten by better people. On the day, they have better events. I've got no problem with that. What I couldn't live with if I knew that I'd never reach my full potential. I was never as strong as I could be because I didn't apply myself fully by not going full time. You know, you get beaten by a stronger guy on the day. That happens. It's very normal. There's nothing you can do about it. But if you know that you haven't given every little ounce into the thing you're trying to work towards, then that's another story. I don't think I'll be happy with that. But yeah, if it doesn't happen, if I don't win that World's Strongest Man within the next 10 years, but I gave everything, I can say, hey, look, I gave everything. I just wasn't there.
In the strongman world, I mean, or even outside of strongman world, who was inspiring you to like, who was you looking up to at the time?
So I when I obviously grew up, obviously Marius was a big kind of influence for me. Fast, strong, fit guy. Won World's Strongest Man 5 times. Excuse me. Brian Shaw was a big influence for me as well. He just kind of oozed professionalism with the sport. I think he took it to another level in terms of his focusing on minute details in terms of training and competing. Outside the sport, a lot of heroes. I respected guys like Martin Johnson, like ferocious competitor, wanted to win absolutely everything. A tough guy, a real workhorse. You know, not the most gifted in terms of kind of skill level on the rugby field, but Jesus, he gave absolutely everything. He literally blood, sweat, and tears were left on the field every time he played. So huge respect for him and the career he had, and guys like Michael Jordan as well. Obviously, very popular with the Last Dance that's come out recently. You see the insight into him, and I just respect the fact that he would win at all costs. Absolutely win at all costs. He wanted to win every time and just be the best he could be, and the fact that, you know, it wasn't all titles for him when he started out. He didn't win for a long time before he got that kind of first title, NBA title.
We spoke about this before about like sort of the marketability. Someone like Michael was like, he had that for sure, but like the thing that he really had to get those titles was that sort of mindset that he had. Do you have that mind? You know, that mindset, that win at all costs.
Yeah, I think I've now, in the most recent couple of years, I've more developed it than I was. I don't think before I wanted to win every time I went onto a rugby field because I was used to it. And then when I came into strongman, it kind of maybe backed off a little because I was still novice to it. But now I've got to a point where I'm at the top of my game. Yeah, I want to win every time I compete. You know, it's not about settling for kind of second best. And you know, that's something that I've actually developed. So it's not, I don't necessarily think it's something you're kind of born with the whole time. Especially if you switch sports, I think you do develop it when your sporting prowess improves as well.
Would you call it an obsession?
Yeah, 100%. It's an obsession. My whole life revolves around strongman. Absolutely everything I do. You know, to the point where when I'm moving house, I'm picking out a house that is going to be able to put a gym in that I can train. Who does that? Like, people look at like schools or what the neighbourhood's like. I was just looking at a space with a double garage so I could put a gym in. You know, and everything in terms of, you know, all my purchases and stuff, you know, is always focused towards strongman. I don't go out and party. I don't play computer games. It's all everything towards being the best at my sport.
So being selfish, usually people think of like selfishness to not sort of do anything for other people. But I feel that what you're doing by your actions is inspiring other people. Is there another sort of level to it where you are thinking about that kind of, you know, inspiring people, putting your best foot forward for other people, leaving sort of a legacy and a foundation for other people as well.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought of myself as something that people look up to. In all honesty, I'm just a guy competing and doing what I love and being paid to do it, which is fantastic. It's only more recently that I've actually spoken to the fans and interacted with them more that I realised that it's a bit more of a big deal than I originally thought. So I just try every time I kind of chat to people to make sure I'm polite, you know, and I talk to them and they have a good interaction with me. You know, I never thought about being a good role model. I just live my life, and if I'm a good role model of someone, then that's brilliant. You know, I'm just 100% genuine. I'm not going to change who I am to try and live up to what someone's expectation might be. But you know, it's working so far. I think people kind of respect what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. More importantly, and yeah, long may it continue.
Just on the dedication thing as well, just the eating thing, we were talking about eating. Would you just talk us through sort of like getting to the point where you are force feeding it, like that sort of like where that dedication comes into it as well?
I guess this is where I probably kind of connect to a lot more of the public than some of the strongmen out there. I think of myself as a normal guy. You know, I'm not 6'8". You know, I'm not naturally walking around at 400 pounds. If I didn't force feed, I'd probably drop back to kind of 17 stone. You know, maybe like 110 kilo or something like that. But you know, I have to kind of work hard on all my training and my nutrition, and to the point where, yeah, my last meal that I'm kind of putting in, I'm just sitting there for ages trying to force it down to make sure I get every last bit of nutrition I can to make sure I'm pushing my body weight up so that I'm competitive on certain events. You know, it's hugely important. And if I skip a meal, I'll lose weight. I know that and I think that, so I make sure I never skip a meal. Whether that's, you know, just a quick shake or whether it's a full sit down kind of steak, rice, veg, you know, I try and make sure I never miss those meals because I know it's going to impact me down the line. But yeah, it's not fun. And once again, I'm fortunate that my partner Amy kind of understands that, and she can just go off and clean the kitchen and stuff while I'm just sitting there trying to chow down my last meal at like 9 o'clock.
I mean, that's a wicked block to have in. If I skip a meal, I'll lose weight.
Yeah.
Like, is that the case, or have you implemented that's going to happen, or?
No, it will happen. Yeah, because most of my meals are around 1,000 calories. So you know, at the moment I'm having kind of just under 7,000, 6,800 calories at the moment. So if I suddenly drop to 5,800, it's huge. And we couldn't work, myself and my nutritionist, we couldn't work out why that was. So we actually got my kind of basal metabolic rate tested. So I got hooked up to a spirometer and I stayed perfectly still, and they measured how many calories I'll burn in a day if I just stay completely still. So this is just without any exercise, anything like that. It turns out I'll burn 2,803 calories if I stay still. So every time I'm eating, I've got to get to that level first, and then I've got to eat the calories that I burn off from moving. And then I've got to eat the calories that are actually then going to grow the muscle. So it's a constant battle with food, trying to make sure, you know, that I get the calories in. And when you're having kind of 1,000 calorie meals, you miss one, that's a sixth of your diet gone. Suddenly you're going to be dropping weight.
So one of the other things that you used to do as your career was you was a sports, what's it called?
Strength and
conditioning coach. Sorry, I went on my head. Strength and conditioning coach. With that, like I used to have a strength and conditioning coach. He's a really intelligent guy, and he was like really minute on every detail. Is that something you've carried through, sort of? And also with that, like, how important is it for athletes, especially, just to have a basic understanding of their body?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's one of my big advantages is the fact that I've been a coach for a long, long time. I've always been my coach as well. I've coached myself. I've programmed for myself, and you know, I'll plan out my training for World's Strongest Man as soon as World's Strongest Man the previous year is done. So my training cycle started as soon as World's Strongest Man finishes. I literally sit there in my hotel room and plan out my training. You know, I know exactly what I need to be doing and what weights I need to be hitting before those competitions. And yes, there's some guesswork. I don't know when competition dates are. But once they get sorted, then I stick to plan. And I think that's one of the most important things with strength training is sticking to a plan and not deviating from that plan. And that's one of the things that, you know, I've developed over the years working with rugby players is making sure everything's the same, everything's efficient. There's no kind of wasted energy because we've only got a limited amount of time you can train. You've only got a limited amount of big lifts in your lifetime, so make sure you're doing it at the right time is hugely important.
Planning for success as well, like just normal. Do you think that's important?
Definitely. You need to, not just planning for a success, it's easy to go, oh, I want to deadlift 502 kilos, but you have to also know, okay, in next year I need to be able to deadlift X amount. This session I need to be able to deadlift X amount. You know, break it down that way. So it's like I said, it's like building a ladder. Okay, if you build a ladder without any rungs, it's just two poles. You're not going up in the air. Okay, but each rung on that ladder is a step that you need to know to be able to climb up to that goal you've got, which is hugely important, because if you don't, then you're always going to be kind of just trying to jump and reach as opposed to climbing.
So usually, like at the end for sound bites, we'll usually do like I'll give you a word, and you just whatever comes to mind with
Word
a word.
association. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not.
Are we drinking while doing this?
It's really cheap way of doing the interview. But it works quite well actually. But it's not like a quick fire thing. Like it is just like whatever comes to your mind. So the first one will be dedication.
Yeah, it's a given. Dedication's a given in anything you do. It's, you know, if you're not dedicated, you won't achieve anything. So I think dedication is not. It's not something that, you know, you can choose to or not to. If you want to achieve your goals, you have to be dedicated. It's like a non-negotiable.
I think a lot of people struggle with this one when it comes to success, and loads of people, I think, fail at this point. Consistency.
Yeah, 100%. Consistency for me is the be all and end all. I mean, you have to be consistent. You know, in my field, consistency means making sure I eat all my meals. It means that I have every single session done. It means that every single lift looks exactly the same that I do, you know? And without that consistency, then you're not going to improve. You know, whether that's improving your technique on the deadlift, if you're not consistent with your reps, how are you ever going to make it better? And it's fine being great for one day. Well, you've got 365 days in a year. If you are great in all those days, you're going to improve massively. You know, everyone needs to look at it as 365 chances to improve every single year, you know, and make sure they're small. It could be a tiny little 1% increase, you know, 1% improvement. But if you do that all the time, then it's a huge amount of improvement, you know, and it all adds up.
Sacrifice.
Yeah, big for me, but sacrifice sometimes gets a negative rap, like you're giving up stuff that you really want. Well, for me, I give up stuff because my want and desire to achieve my goal of winning World's Strongest Man is bigger than my want to do the things that I'm sacrificing. So for me, it's a very easy choice.
Pain.
Normality, really. I mean, for strongman, if you're not in pain at some point, you're probably doing it wrong. We put ourselves under huge amounts of stress and strain for what really? For a trophy at the end of the day, but obviously for our personal goal, not really financial. But pain's part and parcel of success, in my opinion.
So for this is for you then, obsession.
I like to call it a healthy obsession. Once again, obsession gets a negative rap, but obsession for me is just 100% focused towards the thing you're working towards. You know, if you are obsessed with it, then you're gonna be completely focused on it, which makes perfect sense to me.
World's Strongest Man.
The ultimate goal. You know, there's a lot of guys competing every year. 25 to 30 guys compete for that title. And it's the ultimate goal. It's what we're all fighting for, trying to climb over each other to achieve, you know. And it's all friendly backstage, but ultimately we want to win that title.
For somebody who is thinking about getting into strongman, especially the younger people who are looking up to you guys, what's your advice for those people?
I think if you're looking to get into strongman, just take your time. Find some guys who are already doing it. But like I said, you need to make sure you take things one step at a time and just improve. Make sure your technique is flawless in all those lifts, and then the weight will come. Don't try and conquer the world within a year or 2 years. Like, there's no longevity in it. But also, make sure you enjoy it. I think a lot of people put so much pressure on themselves in the sport that if they're not achieving what they think they should be achieving straight away, they're suddenly not enjoying it. They're miserable. What's the point in doing anything if it's going to make you miserable? So you got to make sure you keep enjoying it, and that way you'll be successful if you keep doing something you enjoy. You know, that's the aim of the game.
So on that, with anything, is that I find that to be a key, like to be having fun, to be enjoying it. Like, do you believe in that then? Like outside of strongman as well?
100%. This is not like you said, you've thrown out some words there, you know, obviously like obsession and sacrifice. And like I said, people might, if you just look at those words in isolation, they're not very, or addiction, I guess, as well, you know, is another one. People look at those words as very negative things, you know, what you're losing out on, you know, what you're overly kind of focused on, what you're addicted to. But for me, if it's something you really enjoy, then it doesn't take that much to sacrifice things you know you think you'd be better. It doesn't take that much to be 100% focused on it, and you probably become addicted to the fact you're being successful and you're enjoying it. You know, if people are not wanting to get up in the morning to do the training to make something better, then there's something wrong right there. You know, you should be bouncing out of bed to do it, especially if you're doing it alongside work. It should be a hobby and you should enjoy it.
How many days of balancing the enjoyable stuff with the, obviously there's going to be down days with pushing yourself. How would you, at what point would you go, actually, this has gone too far? Like what percentage of days or?
I don't think I've had many days where I've not enjoyed what I'm doing. I just wouldn't do it. I'm a bit all or nothing, you know. I think that might not help people because some people do struggle. I know that they do struggle sometimes with the mental side of things as well, but I just wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it. So for example, okay, here's an example for you. If I come into the gym and I just feel like I'm a bit off, and it happens, you know, you have a session, I'll just leave the gym. I'll come back the next day, you know, I'll just take a break. But they're very few and far between for me, you know, especially if I'm training towards a competition in 12 weeks, I might have one of those in a 4-month period, you know, a 3-month period. So for me, it's just making sure that, you know, if you're not enjoying the situation you're in, you remove yourself from that situation and do something that's going to make sure you come back the next day and you're back to enjoying it. I guess my mindset is basically, it's me versus myself, you know. Yeah, I want to be world's strongest man, which means I need to beat a load of other people, but I can't control what Alexei Novikov's doing in his training. I can't control what Brian Shaw's doing in his training. But what I have full control of is what I'm doing. So I just look at it as me versus myself. I've got to be better than the version of Adam Bishop 24 hours ago, you know, and that's all you're doing. It's just that step forward every single time, because that's the only thing I can control. There's no point getting stressed about things you can't control.
I think that's solid, mate. Honestly, that's a wicked way of putting it. You against yourself. Perfect. Yeah. Cool, man. Thank you.
All right. No worries, man.
I really appreciate your time, man.
Oh, you're welcome. It was enjoyable, man.